please, and then we can go from there.
Yes, so in live streaming live on now, YouTube.
Yeah, streaming started, Owen.
That's brilliant. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Over to you.
Okay, we're good to go. Thank you very much indeed. So we've got a few welcomes and introductions. I can see that we've got a couple of apologies and one substitution, which is great. So welcome to this last of 2020 North Essex Parking Partnership Joint Committee meeting. We are being broadcast live via Zoom over the internet on YouTube through the Colchester Borough Council channel. So that will therefore be available to watch afterwards. If we can just quickly click a few matters of housekeeping, if you don't mind. So with the exception of the committee clerk, Owen, advising us, could all participants please mute their microphones unless they are actually invited to speak. Officers have chosen to blank their cameras for the moment, but they will join in with cameras with video when the time is appropriate, I hope. I'm going to ask for each item of business to be presented and then ask members of the committee to indicate very clearly if they wish to ask a question or make a comment. If you can use your virtual hand, then please do. And at the end of each item of business, I'll ask members of the committee to indicate whether they approve the decisions as laid out. So basically, we hope to get a general assent. If there is a requirement or a need for a name vote, we can do that, but I hope we'll be able to do it by a show of hands from the members on the camera. So if any of the member of the committee loses their connection, their electronic connection to this meeting, we'll adjourn it very briefly and allow that member to sort their system out if they can and rejoin. We'll give them a few minutes to allow that. If we are still running at 2:30, then depending on the progress of business, we'll seek the views of committee members as to whether we want to continue or have a break. So what I would ask, please, for those members of the public watching who aren't aware who we may all be, have we got any members of the public, Owen?
None down to speak today, but yes, I'm sure we've got.
But of course, if we're live streaming it and anybody's and people are actually watching it, then it would make sense to know who is who. So if we can just do a round robin of in a moment for each participant, just to confirm their name and they are happy with the procedures for the meeting, and I'll call out the names, wait for them to unmute and speak, and then ask to move on to the next participant. So we've had apologies from Councillor Nigel Avey and Councillor Mark Danvers, who's substituted by Councillor Danny Purton. Welcome back. At least we've got somebody who understands the business, which is not saying that Councillor Danvers doesn't, but just to say that as a substitute, there aren't many who understand the business that we will be discussing. But Councillor Purton is one of them who does. And if there are any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests, please declare either now when you do your little introduction, or at the time if it turns out that it would appear that you have an interest. So I will go through that to start with. So let me get on to that bit. Councillor, well, I'm Councillor Robert Mitchell from Essex County Council and the chairman of the North Essex Parking Partnership. I'm going to go down the list as I've got it in front of me. So Owen.
Owen Howell, Democratic Services Officer from Colchester Borough Council, and I'm clerk to the committee.
Thank you. And Matt Evans. Is he listening? Matt is your co-clerk, isn't he, really?
Yeah, that's it. Matt handles the technical side of things behind the scenes.
Yes, apologies, Councillor Mitchell. I am here and present, and as Owen says, I'm clerk behind the scenes today.
Thank you very much, Matt. Lexi, please.
Alexandra Tucktill. I'm the Communications and Marketing Business Partner for NEPP and work for Colchester Borough Council.
Thank you. Lou.
Lou Belgrove. I'm the Business Manager for the North Essex Parking Partnership.
And Councillor Person.
Yes, hi, I'm Councillor Danny Burton from Harlow, substituting for Mike Bambers.
Great. And Councillor E. Please.
Good afternoon. My name is Derek Eek. I'm councillor at Uttlesford District Council, portfolio holder for transport infrastructure and Stansted Airport.
Thank you. And Councillor Talbot.
As Michael Talbot, I'm the councillor for Tendering District Council here. I'm environment portfolio holder in tendering, and Parking Partnership is part of that portfolio. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Lilly.
Hi, Councillor Mike Lilly. I'm representing Colchester.
Very good. And Councillor Van Dalken.
Councillor Richard Van Dalken, Braintree District Council.
So then we've got Ian Taylor, please.
Yes, Ian Taylor, Head of Public Realm, Tendring District Council.
I'm going to speed this slightly up because my participants move around. So I'm going to Jason, Linda, and then Lisa, and then I'll add on.
Yeah, Jason Butcher, Parking Projects Manager for NEPP.
I'm Linda Howells. I'm Economic Development Officer for Uttlesford District Council.
Lisa Hinman, Area Manager for North Essex Parking Partnership.
Okay, efficient, that is. And we have got, that's bounced, I think, Miroslav, Kim, Richard, and Samir.
Hi, it's Miroslav Sihelski for Harlow Council, Officer for Harlow Council.
You're quite quiet, Miroslav, just be aware.
Kim Durrani, Service Director, Epping Forest District Council.
Thank you, Kim.
Afternoon, everybody. Richard Walker, the Group Manager for the North Essex Parking Partnership.
Samir Pandya, Officer for Braintree District Council.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody. I think everybody's had their introductive say. The Zoom doesn't do what Teams does. It doesn't say still. So we need to move on to the minutes of the last meeting held on the 1st of October. And I've got to do a little bit of toggling. Sorry about this. So are there any, we need to agree the minutes of the last meeting. I'm going to just scrolling through the initial bits. Is it worthwhile sharing?
I can certainly bring that up on the, oh, hang on, actually, can I? Sorry, perils of using two computers. I have my meeting agenda up on a different computer to the one we're operating the call on. Matt, do you have the meeting agenda there to hand that you could bring up the minutes from, please?
Yep, certainly leave that with me.
I'm going to be looking at page 5 first for those people who may be using another screen and looking at it there.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Matt.
There we go. That's great. So I don't think there is anything. Has anybody got anything to bring up first? Please raise your electronic hand if you have. I'm hoping everybody's read the minutes. So you're still scrolling that, aren't you, Matt? If you can continue to gently scroll, I'm not expecting people to read it because I'm expecting that everybody will already have been through the minutes. I couldn't find any holes in it.
I mean,
I've got somebody potentially with their microphone open, but I don't think the conversation is part of this meeting. Right.
I'm not seeing any hands raised, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's excellent. Okay, well, can we therefore have a show of hands for all the members, if we can unshare that lot? And for some reason I'm not back in the right view. There we go. Okay, Councillor Van Dalken and Councillor Purton, that looks to be a hand. Is that a hand of approval? Your cameras are up, so a thumbs up is absolutely fine. Councillor Eek, thank you very much. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So we now need to move on to the meeting today. I'll get that up. So we need to, where are we starting with Richard on the on-street budget, please.
Yes, I'll invite Lou along as well to present the
Thank you.
report. In advance of the meeting, I've also sent round to members and client officers a bit of an amplification of where we are with the budget. It's been a bit of a challenging year, as we're all quite aware. All sorts of different things have been going on, particularly where we've suspended in some cases the enforcement of particularly residence parking zones, as we acknowledge that there's different sort of parking behaviour going on there where people are working from home. Extended parking permit schemes to cover for the duration of those outages, and obviously curbside parking, the casual type of parking that we'd normally expect. The opportunity cost of that has vanished during the lockdown, so we'll never see those again, and likewise some of the visitor permit income. But throughout we've had to be paying staff, of course, and our call centre and business unit, and for most part the technical team haven't stopped either, and in fact we've accelerated some of the schemes that we'd had previously. So all of that is contained within the amplification. So if I hand over to Lou now and take you through the detail of the report you've got here about finances, and we can take any questions at the end of that if you have any more.
Okay, we've tried to set out worst case scenario in Appendix 1. It shows you that we are at about £500,000 deficit at the end of the year. What we've then done underneath those works is to show you how we intend to correct that deficit so that we end up in a more comfortable position going into the next financial year. So we've laid it out, so hopefully it's all quite self-explanatory, but any questions really? I think we've in the report we've tried to add some text around the reasons where we are, but it all boils down to the national lockdowns and COVID, and it's just us now trying to find ways to try and recover what we've lost because of those periods of lockdown.
Just to add to that, so some cash flow issues around the residence parking. Obviously extending the validity of residence parking has moved the renewals into a new year for what's now a third of the residence parking. So the cash flow issue around residence parking, we will get that money in full of course next year from when renewals happen, but that's just recognised the change in circumstances. PCNs, we won't make that budget, and the pay and display, the curbside, my permit curbside parking is an opportunity cost, and we won't make that budget. All of the time we've been gradually saving for a rainy day, and I always put our umbrella up now because it's been pouring for a bit. But all the time we've been saving up to start on some of these projects as well and bring forward some of the TRO related projects. And we've listed some of the things that we brought forward below there. And indeed, as we move forward to the project report later on, you'll see in Jason's report how the other amounts start to get split out amongst the projects. But notably in there, we've painted quite a lot of red line as part of the emergency procedure. And to a greater degree, that's probably work that we would have carried out in future. So some of this is future proofing, but has been spent out of our reserve pot much earlier than perhaps we would have gone about that. So there's a few amounts in there that have been spent early, and there's quite a large hole in the income, but I'm very glad that we have a reserve to draw from, and certainly want to be starting out on this scheme now with no money in a reserve. And people are very keen to tackle parking on why it generates a surplus as a bit of a byproduct from what we do, but my word, we're glad of having something now to draw upon. Without having any other need to underwrite any deficit of any sort, and still some money in that reserve fund to carry on with the projects that we've got set out, which you'll see a bit later on. So it's a reasonable position given the circumstances in which we find ourselves, I suppose.
And if I might add, I only this morning responded to the Cabinet Member for Highways, Councillor Bentley, to a letter that he had sent to both the chairman of the parking partnerships in relation to the future of the parking partnerships beyond 2022, because we need to discuss that. We've already discussed it at these meetings, and we've had other stuff circulated. One of the things that was pointed out was that there wasn't an impact on Essex County Council finances either as a result of sensible and reasonable stewardship with the two parking partnerships. So I think that's very positive. Has anybody got any comments they'd like to raise? Councillor Van Dalken.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just ask, I'm looking here at the, I think this is Appendix 1, the multicoloured spreadsheet. At the bottom, new NEPP fund transfer. Does that mean there is a new NEPP or this is new transfer? Please.
Shall I take the...
Richard, please.
Yeah, as part of the proposals to set up what happens after our current agreement ends on 31st of March 2022, it sounded a long way away when we started, didn't it? But it's only next year soon. Not many months away now, 14, 15 months away. We'd set aside as part of our proposal back to the county council that we'd keep a £300,000 rainy day fund. Little did we know when we were talking about that this time last year or whenever it was that we'd need such a large amount out there to cover some operating costs should we need it. That was principally to cover any we had inclement weather fund essentially if it snowed during February and we found ourselves unable to go out and patrol and to cover some of the other costs, that would cover it. The 300,000 is comprised 100,000 cash flow sum that we've had in our one of our reserve funds from the county council invested in case of cash flow occurrence, and 200,000 from our reserve fund. So we still have that set aside to pass on to the new operation, besides being able to fund the projects we see ourselves with there. And I'm hoping for a return to something a bit closer to normal from well, hopefully Easter time, and we can start getting back to more normality with the way we tend to operate ourselves. So yeah, set aside that to pass into a new operation should one emerge.
Thank you very much, Richard.
Thank you. Councillor Burton.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'd just like to congratulate the management on guiding the NEPP through what could have been a financial disaster and seemingly ended up with in not too bad a position. But secondly, actually been able to explain it to us. Most of the time when I get financial reports, they seem to end up confusing me rather than explaining things to me. The only thing I wanted to ask was from an authority that's had its own sad consequences of COVID. We've now redeployed the staff. Are they all back healthy, or have we suffered any depletions?
Yeah, we'd furloughed a small number of staff, and principally the people who would have been shielding as well. Obviously, COVID has touched a number of people, and it has had an impact on some of the people who work for me and directly with some of their families. I get a bit emotional sometimes when I talk about this because it's had a very close impact for one of my CEOs. Yeah, it's been a very difficult time, unfortunately. But yes, other than that, everybody's back and working. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's very good news. Apart from that exception, thank you.
We've had a good team, and it's good to see most of them back on the road again. Right. I think if there are no other questions on that, we will move forward to the discussion about the surplus fund, which is Jason.
Sorry, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Van Dalken.
Yeah, sorry, I just have one other question. in point 5.8, application made to national government for grant money. Is there any indication that some will be forthcoming?
The application has been made to cover the income. There's a very complicated formula that sits around that, as any of you with financial responsibilities will be aware, and it nets off against any furlough payment. So it's almost it's almost not worth furloughing people. But yeah, the grant application has gone in, yet to hear the final analysis of that. So don't know yet, but the outturn could end up being a little better than it is there. So this is worst case without that in.
Thank you.
If we could ask just for an update on that specifically, Richard, at the next meeting, just because I'm hoping by that stage the government will have sorted out and either paid it or told us whether they're going to. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, sorry to interrupt. At 1.2 of the report, we've got a decision required asking the committee to approve the budget for 2021-22. I just wanted to check.
My apologies, I'd scrolled ahead a bit. So can I have a general show of hands if everybody is happy with that budget?
And then we were going to bring you the budget for the new year there as well, but that will be confirmed at our March meeting for the 2021-22 budget. So yeah, noted this, thank you, and we'll bring you the new budget when that's finally been prepared and confirmed. There's quite a lot of change around with the other costs that come from Colchester in there that they're still finalising. So we'll bring you that in March, the new one.
That's great.
Right. So I'll make a note that we don't actually have that decision at this meeting, but it will come back for March.
Yeah, with an update. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we can now move on to page where it's 16, I think, is it? 17. If you're using a separate screen or your own. Jason.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Yeah, so purpose of this report has three main aims from this, really. Firstly, just to note progress of the current projects. I've provided project update reports for each of those here. I won't go through each of them. If there's any particular pertinent questions, I'm quite happy to answer those as they come. Second point really is to raise the issue of the variable messaging system, which is something that was bid for back in January by both by Colchester tendering and also Uttlesford. We've done quite a bit of work in the background to determine what those costs would be. And kind of from that detail, it's basically, as I hope I've indicated, just doesn't really work from a financial perspective. It's incredibly expensive. And I think given the situation we're in financially, given that the surplus isn't as big as it once was, I'm not sure that we're in a position to be able to support those anymore. So looking to get those removed officially from the project list. And the final aim really is just to seek to reassign the money that was put forward for those to potentially reinvest into other projects on the basis that that the surplus is available at the end of the year. So again, that's kind of what we're looking to do. Quite happy to take questions. But yeah, it is as the report.
Jason, could I quickly raise the point that the VMS idea was valid?
Mm-hmm.
It's just the actual presentation of doing it via VMS is going to be expensive.
Yeah.
And that the alternative, effectively online suggestions that we have discussed before and offline as well,
mm-hmm.
that we seek those sensors that do the job to provide the information via another method is still live from a project point of view, because that will have an expense, but in relative terms, it's much cheaper than having to feed that into our own VMS. It's much better to feed it directly into SatNavs so that the driver gets a much more exact idea of whether there is parking, for instance, in the area that he's aiming for. And if there isn't, he can change it, or she, or whatever. So, there is an option. It's not cancelling the whole project. It's just repurposing it in the light of the fact that really VMSs have probably had their day from a point of view of putting up new ones, and we can work smarter and better technologically so long as we have the sensors to give us the information in the first place and put them through other organisations, you know, Google Maps and all the rest of it.
Yep, yeah, absolutely, Councillor Mitchell. I mean, that is the intention. We're looking at a number of ways of doing that. I mean, it could be base sensors, which is something that we were already working on as part of a separate project here, but it could also be through ANPR. And the kind of final part of that is being able to get the data into vehicles. We obviously use the My Permit system, which can handle data to kind of this level, but then we need to explore the potential options for getting it into the app, but also into vehicles as well, potentially in the longer term. So that is the intention. But I think, as you say, the systems as they exist, the VMS systems as they exist, are incredibly expensive, and they bring quite a number of risks as well, ongoing risks and expenses. So I'm not sure it's the kind of position we probably want to put ourselves in.
Thank you. Councillor Torben.
Just a query on item 2.3 under the heading of reasons for the recommended decisions. And it's only a curiosity on my part. It says additional variable managing systems are not supported by Essex Highways as they are not seen as the future of traffic management. I don't quite understand what's going on there. That's no conflict between us and Essex Highways, is it?
No, there's no conflict at all. It's completely, you know, this is, Essex Highways are completely on board with this. Essex Highways are fully aware of the cost of their VMS systems. We do have a number around the county. Nobody is advising that we're going to chop them down because they have a purpose. The problem is installation, management and maintenance and repair are all very expensive. But actually, we are in a different age from when we approved this. And the different age has been caused by COVID. We are moving, thank God, we're moving forward into the 21st century properly now. I know we're 20 years late, but actually we're getting there, and we've appreciated that what is the point in putting up very expensive bits of kit, both initially and during their lifetime, and should we need to repair them, when actually there is technology available that speaks directly to the drivers. There are many systems in modern cars. I know that not everybody's got them yet, but that's the way we've got to look forward. We can't, there's no point in looking backwards and live where we were, you know, in this, we haven't got Austin Maestros and things anymore with bad seat belts and things that fall apart when you bump into a lamppost. We have very different vehicles now, and they are becoming even more future-proof. I attended the opening of the GridServe, the world first, you probably saw it on the local news, the world first as a electric vehicle charging station with 36 chargers, I believe, able to refuel, but from a point of view of recharge electrically, a lot of vehicles very quickly. And the cleverness of these cars now that are coming along that are very much connected is what we want to feed into with the sensors that we have. So for instance, looking at Clacton parking, we don't want to be telling people that this car park's got 27 spaces and this one 28 spaces on a variable messaging sign. We want their sat-nav to tell them directly how many spaces are at the place that they're aiming for, so they don't end up driving around. And if there aren't any spaces, to feed them off to another space where there is another car park where there is space, so that they don't go driving round and round in circles in the middle of Clacton when they get into the built-up area, polluting the place unnecessarily. That is the aim that we have, and that's across Essex Highways.
Thank you, Robert. A fairly complete answer, I must say. But it just begs the question, how far into the future do you look? Because it's quite clear that electric cars themselves will be overtaken by hydrogen-powered vehicles.
That's not clear at all, actually.
Oh, yes. That's certainly something for the future.
We've been discussing about hydrogen, but electric's where it's going to be for a few years.
Yeah.
And hydrogen will come on in some respects, but actually hydrogen is very expensive to make. Electricity is much cheaper. And as a member of the Climate Action Commission at Essex, then I'm very much involved in both the future transport and the power and waste special interest groups that we've been discussing. We're getting off subject though slightly. So have we got any other comments from members?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at the moment, Mr.
See
Chairman.
either, and I can't see any either virtual or literal hands. So we are asked to review the outline costings. We've got that hiding, I think, haven't we, down there?
Yeah, it's Appendix D, Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get down there. There we go. So that is page 23 for those people who are using, I've got it elsewhere. So that gives an idea of what we're looking at. And that's got the VMS costings there, which is going to be, would be using a significant proportion, and we'd obviously be reducing that. In the second table, I'm hoping everybody can see what I'm looking at on another screen or on paper. So that's what we're looking at as total expenditures and the minimum estimated VMS costs for the Colchester, Clacton and Saffron Walden. We'll just put those slightly on ice for the moment. Working at Appendix C, those are the other bits, aren't they, Jason?
Yeah, these are the other projects that were agreed. So what I've done is I've splitted them out into projects that have been programmed and are in our kind of work program as we're going, and then also those that have not been have not had any work done on them yet. So it's just to highlight really what the kind of level of work that's ongoing at the moment and the kind of estimated delivery for those particular projects.
And in many respects, of course, the timing, because the timing has been significantly impacted by COVID, has it not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of projects there. I mean, the Park Safe Schools project was something that should have happened in May. It's now likely to happen in January. So it kind of highlights the impact of COVID on the bit of being able to deliver some of these. But yeah, it'll be good to get some of these crossed off really. And I'm hoping early into the new year we can start to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Eade. You're still muted. That's better.
Thank you very much. Yeah, sorry, while you were going through that, you then came on to the appendices. That money, which was, or the money that was set aside for the VMS, is that money going back into the reserve? Is that going to be ring fenced to pay for any future technology that comes forward? How is this being dealt with?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. That's the intention really, is to kind of keep that money aside on the basis that the surplus is able to kind of support that. And then hopefully in March, we should be able to put together a report to handle where that money will go, whether that is additional bids or whether that is just to support other projects. But as Councillor Mitchell suggests, you know, it would be good for that money to go towards supporting the kind of aims that VMS was looking to get to, but just in a slightly different way. So there's a bit of thought process to be done around what that money would achieve, but yeah, I don't think the intention is to spend it anywhere else at the moment.
Thank you, Jason. Very well put. I would agree with exactly that. It's to continue with the aims, just in a slightly different direction. Just a different part of the bow and arrow board, as it were. We still want to hit the target, but we want to make sure, but the centre of the target has moved a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So,
yes, Chairman, I've got hands raised from Richard Walker and from Ian Taylor from tendering.
Sorry, thank you very much. I didn't see that hiding on the side. Thank you for the reminder. Ian first, please.
Yes, apologies, Robert. I'm not used to Zoom, so it took me a while to find the raised hand button. So I'm probably about a minute behind what I wanted to ask about. It was just going back to the VMS systems. Are Essex County Council proposing to start withdrawing them elsewhere? Because I think there is a discussion to be had about their usefulness. They're still a useful piece of technology when you come into town. You know, I use them a lot in Chelmsford and in Colchester when I come in. I think they're brilliant. And I don't think my Google or anything else quite matches up to that at the moment when I'm driving the car. So I'm interested to know whether they are planning on withdrawing them all, or whether it's just new ones they're not so keen on.
I think I did actually say exactly that we are not planning to chop any down. We're not planning to remove them. There is no plan to remove any of them. The fact is that if we were starting again, it's like one of those examples, isn't it? If you were starting again, you wouldn't start from here. And we've realized with COVID and all the electronic working that we've been doing, that actually there are certain things that are not really fit for purpose won't be fit for purpose in the future. And I can give the example of my wife driving into our drive some months ago, and it told that her car told her that my son's girlfriend's mobile phone needed charging. She'd once used it in my wife's car. And it also, the car told her one morning when she got into it that you had an accident last night. Do you want to report it to the company who made the car? And she went round looking around the car to find out where the damage had come from, couldn't find it at all, and then realised that actually it was parked in the drive at that time of night. So she knocked on my son's door and he said, "Yeah, sorry, Mum, it was a really light bump and I couldn't see any damage." So these cars are much cleverer than we are in many respects. And those are the sort of things that we have to realise already in place in newer vehicles, and they will come with future vehicles. It's part of the future. We don't know exactly how long, but we need to face that and realise that by the time, let's say in a year, we got a new VMS sign on the way into Clacton telling people about the car parks, that yes, I agree they're useful, but looking further forward, they're going to be more direct. We're going to end up with head-up displays in cars that tell people, oh, that car park's now full. But it gives them the direct information, and it's all about improving the efficiency of people not driving around in circles looking for car parks. She can talk to her car and say, take me to the nearest car parking space. And it says, yeah, second turning on the left. So,
okay, I'll take your word for that, Robert. I'm slightly more sceptical about how quickly that will be.
Well, it's here already. In some places, not everywhere, obviously across the board. So no, we are not planning to chop down Therabone messaging signs at all. Richard.
I was talking to our software supplier Chipside this morning about development of the app to take on such of these things. But my point here really was around the amount of money that is there, and that's a victim of our monetary squeeze. If you understand the reference from my song there. These are things that we'll have to push forward into future years if we're to fund them, because we don't know that we've got the money just at the moment to do these additional things. We'll know better by the time March comes with those other outstanding issues that I mentioned before, whether we've got the grant from the government to repay our income, and that would go to fund some things like this again. At the moment, the budget is unknown for these, so we'll have to push them down the road. No pun intended there, a little bit further until we can get to some of these things. So these are the first things to fall off, I suppose, the current funded list.
Yeah, they're just being put in the attic for the moment. They haven't gone away. So I think if there are no other comments from anybody else, I can't see any virtually or visually. So we're being asked to review the outline costings for the conditionally approved things that we've just been talking about in the form of the VMSs, and to approve that the total funding for these items is retained pending the future discussions about them, etc. So very much what we've just been talking about. Can I have a visual or virtual show of hands, please, to everybody who agrees with that?
Councillor Burton.
Councillor Eek is there. Councillor Purton's got his virtual hand up. Thank you very much, sir. Good. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for that one. We are now, hang on a moment. I'm losing track. Where's the next?
Forward plan.
I think we're looking at page 25, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I've got it. Thank you very much.
I have an update for you before then about obstructive and footway parking.
Oh, yes.
Verbal update as item 8 on your agenda. Not too much to report in terms of movement. I'll preface what I'm going to say with that. Next year, at some point, the government is due to report. So by the 22nd of November, you remember last time I said there was a consultation out and we had to have our responses into that by that date. And I made our response for North Essex Parking Partnership, and I think I circulated that around for you to have a look at. And if you do want to have a look, it's on Colchester's website under consultations if you want to go and review what we've said there. We've plumped for an expanded option 2, which is not in every case a full ban of footway, but to take a middle ground where we'd like to see the obstruction offence decriminalised and shared between local authorities and the police, and then a local policy put in place where we can attend such circumstances as we need. And we've reported on that draft policy previously, and I think we've got strike the right balance there between just an outright ban that would simply move all the cars onto the carriageway and cause other problems, and taking into account local circumstances. So that was our preferred response to that, alongside a number of other different bits and pieces that we added in, and some financials. So they're all there if you want to go and have a look at that. The DFT, Department for Transport, is having looked through those early in the new year, and is duty bound to respond to the consultation. They had something in excess of 15,000 responses to it nationally, and in there also was some free text fields. And I think from memory, the number was about 230,000 individual pieces of text from those responses in the free text fields that they've got to now consider. So quite a substantial response to that consultation, which is in England, outside London. Wales have got their own scheme, and Scotland have got their own scheme, which are being set up. Hopefully Wales was looking to do something that wouldn't require legislation. Scotland have been working on footway parking for some time, and London have had an outright parking ban for some considerable time now.
74.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, outside London, all sorts of different things. If you think about rural areas, Victorian terraced housing in urban areas, 30s housing estates, 70s housing estates, all got different sorts of their own particular circumstances, haven't they, for people parking and their need to park on footways. But also, of course, any obstruction is an obstruction. So, you wouldn't want to have something parked in the way, but there is a middle ground there where there's sufficient room to be left for people to get past. And the sweep of the white stick of a blind person, we've said, visually impaired person, is about 4 feet, and that's our sort of I was going to say yardstick, but that's not 4 feet, is it? And that's our measure of clear footway to be left.
1, 2, 3 centimetre stick.
123 centimetres, yeah, 1, 2, 3, and that's quite a nice, easy thing to remember. And if you park tidily at the back of a very, very wide footway, provided you're not damaging the services underneath, so be it. And then we have things to think about, like loading, and if vans loading and things like that do need to get out of the way of emergency vehicles, should they be allowed to just bump up and load for a very short time. So that all of that went into the consultation. The questions about them all, we should hear sometime in the new year, probably late on next year, I suspect. And suspect that most people have asked for some sort of decriminalisation of it. So in the meantime, we'll be looking for efficiencies in our own operation to try and make enough way to get enough patrol time to go and look at these new things. And that's it from me.
Richard, thank you very much, and thank you for your very comprehensive response to DFT. That was very welcome. I also put in a personal response, but with my role, as it were, but an individual response. And I know the South Essex Parking Partnership followed in similar vein. And we have got complete buy-in across Essex that does not ask for a county-wide ban on pavement parking. It's too simplistic, and it doesn't offer those alleviations that Richard was explaining. And it would be, I think, a nightmare to actually manage for both the parking partnership, and it would be chaotic for the police, I'm sure, if it were to become a county-wide ban. And of course, one of the bits that was fun, I had to speak on BBC Essex this morning to discuss the motion that was put forward at the county council that was asking for a pavement ban. The people raising the motion were slightly behind the drag curve, unfortunately, but they've now got the message, I think, that we are very much in favour of addressing these issues, but in the right way, in the right places where it's appropriate. Thank you, Richard. I think we are looking, are there any other questions on that issue? It's quite a hot subject at the moment.
Not seeing any hands raised, Mr. Chairman.
No, nor am I. So we need to look ahead at the forward plan, don't we? Is that right?
Yep, that's it, Mr. Chairman. Basically, I'm not proposing to add anything to the report there, just to draw members' attention to the fact that we need to set the meeting dates for 2021 to 2022. That should be.
Yep. Oh, yes, typo.
Yes, my apologies.
You've just spotted it or just brought my attention to it. You're quite right. So we've got those 5 dates there, which are ready to go for those people who need to know. And the forward plan, which is on page 27, isn't it, gives the idea of what we will be discussing throughout that period. Very similar to those people who remember these things and have been with us for long enough to remember the various reviews and the quarter parts of the annual report, which is at least readable and allows it to be so, that will be coming through.
Van Dalken.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's not a terribly important issue, but I noticed that all these future meetings, they just put down as Zoom meetings, and one hopes that in a year's time we won't be doing Zoom, or we won't have to if we don't want to, and perhaps that's a discussion we should have anyway. All I'm saying is we're obviously getting out of the habit of a meeting being allocated to a different district every time.
Yeah, I quite agree, and I don't have a problem with that at all. There are a couple of discussions to go with that. I don't think we are yet in a position to decide that we can dispense with online meetings. There are significant arguments about sustainability as well. And actually, if we can hold an online meeting, why should we be travelling all over the county in order to have it face to face? This is just being devil's advocate. It's not my opinion necessarily. But yes, there would be a principle. What we might add, Owen, you have already done it in the September Joint Committee proposal. Sorry, you've done it in June, we've got it remote, and you've added in September as a row and house job. Is that right?
Sorry, yes, I think you're looking at the client officer.
Sorry, my apologies. Sorry, we're looking at tendering and.
Yes, my apologies. I went through after our last committee meeting. It was raised that there was potential confusion by having what would have been the in-person meeting venues there on the forward plan. We didn't want anyone to think that it was actually going to be at those venues and turn up when it's actually a remote meeting. I've noticed that I've missed off the 1st of October meeting. That should also be noted as an online Zoom meeting. And just to give you assurance that we are keeping an eye on the situation, and as things develop, we can then get back to potentially, when it's deemed appropriate and safe to do so, to having some kind of presence for an in-person meeting. That could be in the form of a hybrid meeting, whereby those who feel comfortable and can turn up and want to be there in the room can do so, and then others can join remotely. and we've actually started using remote meetings for full council at Colchester Borough Council. We've got the tech set up there in our grand jury room, whereby a rather good camera is now in operation, so that the mayor, the chief executive, the monitoring officer and the committee clerk can all be in the same room, and then members of the council all join in remotely. And of course, as restrictions hopefully become eased and we can have more people in the same area, then that gives us more options, and we'll certainly have that on the cards to discuss and see what the joint committee wants to do with regard to those future meetings.
And for those people who've been following it, the county council have been doing the same. It is possible, and it isn't quite the same. It's not as personable, but it manages to achieve the object. So I think, Owen, if we can just either remove or put in brackets tendering district council offices where you've done so, or we can have in a smaller font or somewhere hiding around, just reminds people where it might plan to be if we are able to do so. If you can put them both in the same box.
Those are passed, of course, on page 27. That was 2020. Those are meetings that we would have had. So page 27 has gone by.
Yes,
and page 28 is future, and we're on the first one of page 28 at the moment, 10th of December.
We are. You're quite right. I'm thinking that that's looking ahead to next year, when 2021, and it's not. It's 2020. But
Still two to come. March and then
too much history there, Owen. Your 20s and 21 are getting slightly muddled.
Yes, it's clearly a tense situation, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we'll look forward to that just being updated with the right year.
Yeah.
And if you can just include the in brackets, if it's not virtual, the ones in brackets.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think we've had the confusion there.
That's where if it would be, if it could be.
Yes, we've had the confusion whereby we started off looking at the proposed meeting dates for next municipal year, whereas these are actually the current forward plan for the current municipal year. So it's thanks to Richard for clarifying.
Yeah. Blinded by the 20s and 21s. Thank you very much, everybody. Right, I think that is it that is on the agenda. If there's any other last minute items of AOP that members have an urge to raise, then feel free to do so. Owen.
Mr. Kim Durrani from there we go. Yes, yeah, it has his hand raised.
Tim, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Afternoon, members. It's just under AOB. I just wanted to acknowledge, although members have addressed this and Councillor Burton mentioned, I think we've had a lot of issues with COVID-related inconsiderate parking and antisocial parking and the like in Epping Forest districts, as I'm sure has happened elsewhere. I just wanted to acknowledge that the teams have been very effective, the managers, all of the staff in dealing with any strange and last-minute requests. So just wanted that noted from our side. Also would like to mention the TRO team, because we've had a lot of issues with people not realizing how long it takes to have a new TRO, and with a lot of people working from home and more cars than the roads can accommodate, strange and funny requests being made. And I think Trevor and his team have been really helpful. The one ongoing thing which members I think might be aware of or may come their way is around the vaccination centers. So as NHS looks for more and more vaccination centers, a particular problem we are finding is the centers they're choosing, there isn't a lot of off-street parking. So that's one thing which Trevor's working with us on. And I just wanted to acknowledge again that that's an extra piece of work, which we have to somehow find safe spaces. We can't make quick TROs to facilitate, patients only TROs, but Trevor's working, and I think I just wanted to acknowledge that it's extra work, and we as the district are thankful for what the officers are doing.
Van Darken.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what Kim has just said, particularly from my point of view. My mother's been invited to go to one of the vaccination centres. She's 94, and that says it all. That the elderly people, the older people, are being given the opportunity, and they're not going to be able to walk very far. For a lot of them aren't. So,
thank you, Richard. I hope you're in enough of a bubble to be able to take her. Thank you very much, Kim. Yeah, I would also like to pay great thanks to Trevor and his team and Shane and everybody who's been working towards getting these TROs put in place. We've had a really, in many respects, a good year, much better than, sadly, many others. But I mean for a good year that actually we've managed to get on with it, installing a number of schemes. Useful that the roads were quieter in some places, but not in every. We've been innovative, especially in places like Epping Forest and where we've done, I think it was 6 miles of double red lines to deal with the, to be quite honest, idiots who decided, oh, I'll just pop down from Cambridge to go for a walk in the forest right in the middle of lockdown and park on the road because, of course, all the public parking areas were closed quite sensibly. And that was a cooperation with the City of London Police and the conservators of Epping Forest and Kim and his team. And it got on quickly with it and it was done. Now these things caused a little bit of, we did the same in East Mersey rather, where there's a country park there that had the similar sort of problems, and idiots going parking in passing bays so that nobody could pass or park or do anything pretty much. It's amazing how selfish some people can be. And it's really good to see that we've come up with initiatives and solutions to deal with the problems that we have with people who are a little bit more inconsiderate than they should be. We've got lots more work to do. I know that there are lots of proposed TROs around the bazaars. I'm getting involved in stuff that I wouldn't normally expect to, but I'm very keen to try and help members of the public understand how it is that we reach solutions that we know they're all on the website if they can understand them, and to help to educate people as to how the parking partnerships work and how we can help them to have a more sociable environment in which to A, park, and B, get to work safely and sustainably. Right, that's enough rant from me. If there are no other questions, I will close the meeting at just before 2 o'clock, which is pretty good for the North Essex Parking Partnership. Thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance. I will wish you all a very happy Christmas with however much of a bubble you can manage to arrange, or keep safe at home. And we will look forward to seeing everybody in the next meeting. Thanks, Samir. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Take care.
Good Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.